Man, this one's a doozy. It comes up in the comments all the time. What about 501c3 nonprofit churches? Is that okay? Or is that a sin? Is it a blessing, or have you sold your soul to the government? There are a wide range of opinions on this, always extremely strong and typically very vocally negative. And I see a lot of misinformation in there that I want to spend some time educating on. I'm not here to say you have to agree with me on my conclusions, but I do want you to have proper information so that when you say things online or you form your opinions, you'll be equipped to have good ones, healthy ones, informed ones, and you'll know how to push back on misinformation, and you'll be able to stand on truth. Okay? It's always a good thing. There are people who say, no, absolutely never. It's a sin. You're no longer a church. You've sold your soul to the devil. All of the above. It's kind of that Anabaptist spirit. David Lipscomb saying, church and government, nothing to do with each other ever in any way, shape, or form. I get that. I'm a very small government type person. I get that resistance. I get that hesitation. I get the ickiness of it all. Filing something with the spiritual body, with a governmental body, get it. That resonates with me in certain ways. Okay, but some of the things that I hear people saying about that need some correction. So we'll get there in just a moment. Other people say, this is what we do. It has benefits for the body. It helps people be able to give more of their money without tax liabilities, and it's just helpful. But what I don't want to see is people condemning something they don't understand. I also don't want to see people approving something necessarily that they don't understand. Let's try to understand. Can we do that together? The first thing is you need to understand the process so that you can have an informed opinion on this. I am not a legal expert. Please don't take this as legal advice. I'm just giving you a thumbnail sketch of my best understanding of this, okay? So you file for a 501c3 through the federal government, I believe through the IRS. You send them like a 50-page application. You send them like $500. It takes them 3 to 6 months generally to approve it. And the reason it takes so long and the reason it's a 50 to 60 page document is because the government is going to do their due diligence to make sure that you are eligible to receive the kind of benefits that a 501c3 gets from a governmental perspective. Because you're going to get some tax breaks, right? Your donors are going to get some tax breaks. And the government wants to make sure that you are not just creating this to serve your own interests, but that you are creating this to be an asset into the community and the life of the community. So that's why you get a benefit. You get a benefit because you are a benefit. You have to select a board. You put those names on the application. This ensures oversight. It ensures at least an annual accountability meeting of what's going on with the entity so that things can be made sure that no one is abusing this system or doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Because if you just have one person who's overseeing finances and giving and all these things, that's not only bad for the church, that's potentially bad for that person. The organization cannot be overtly political. You can talk about political issues in the sense of a stance on abortion or a certain matter, but you can't just say we all have to vote for this candidate or that candidate. I'm super happy with that because I don't go to church to hear that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. A lot of people don't know this, but the assets then are owned by the entity, and that means that when the entity dissolves, which they all do someday, that those assets must then go to another 501c3, another nonprofit. You can't just sell a church and divide up the assets among the members and say we got $1 million divided by 200 people and we each get a check. Because the donations were given as a nonprofit, the money stays in a nonprofit system. And that actually I feel like is a pretty healthy thing because that keeps people from legally, financially, morally, ethically gaming the system, which is what a lot of people blame 501c3s for, is people are gaming the system. Actually, 501c3 keeps you from gaming the system. We're going to talk more about that in just a moment. You end up not paying property tax typically, you end up not paying sales tax. So those are some of the nuts and bolts of the 501c3 that you need to be aware of. I want to deal with 3 misconceptions. The first is the big one. If you file for this, the government's all up in your business. Do not take anything I'm saying as legal advice. See a lawyer. I'm just telling you my experience and I'm telling you my best understanding. My best understanding and my complete experience is that the government tries to stay out of your business. The government doesn't want anything to do with your business. Now, if you get out there and be like, you got to vote for so-and-so, and you just beat that drum really hard, all of a sudden you have kind of violated the terms of the nonprofit agreement with the government, which is you are here to be a benefit to the community. not a political action network. The Congress actually passed something, 7611 in the IRS code, and that states that the government is very, very limited in its capabilities of what it can and cannot do toward 501c3s. Their auditing ability is very, very slim. They have to get like super high level approval to audit something like that. So the government doesn't want to be in your business, okay? So when people say, oh, 501c3, the government's all in your business and it compromises everything, they don't want that job. Nobody there wants that job. So when you see that, it's just really not true. And so if you're saying that and think that, then I would just suggest that you kind of get the facts on that. The government doesn't tell you what to preach. The government doesn't tell you what to teach. The government doesn't tell you what to do. The government doesn't tell you who to hire. Government doesn't make you fire anybody. It stays out of your business. The second misconception is that you don't follow Jesus if you're a 501c3 because you're following the government. It's just really, that has no basis in reality. A church doesn't say, oh, we filed for 501c3, now we're following Caesar. It's like, no, we're doing that to get some tax benefit. We're doing that to be a good steward of our money. Whatever reason that the church is saying that has nothing to do with idolatry. Now, that doesn't mean that there is not idolatry that happens somewhere with somebody with all of this, where someone puts too much stock in the government. You see Christian groups, even churches, that can do that, and that puts them on dangerous ground with the government. Good. That should put you on dangerous ground with somebody, maybe even with God. The third one is big too. People say, oh, people abuse this system and they make their home the church building and they write everything off and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? If your home, your primary residence becomes legally owned as the church building, that means when you sell your home, you don't get any of the money. So if it would be like the dumbest idea that you could ever come up with would be to have the church nonprofit own your home. It's called not getting the appreciation. It's called not getting your mortgage write-off. It's called many things, but it would be very, very not wise to do. So people don't do that because it's not smart. It's just a bad idea. And then people say, oh yeah, so they're abusing this system and they're getting all these tax write-offs. If you do that, you actually can get in trouble. I just want you to hear that it's kind of bad logic to say, well, someone out there abused it, therefore it's bad. Someone out there is printing fake money, but we spend money every day. Do you stop taking cash because someone printed a fake bill? I don't. There are churches out there doing this wrong, okay? That doesn't mean the whole thing is bad. And so if our logic says because one guy did it wrong or 10 guys did it wrong, the whole thing is bad, I just want you to rethink that, okay? So there are situations where this can make sense for a church, especially an established traditional institutional church where they have a large piece of property and there's a lot of assets going on and a lot of money changing hands where you don't want that flowing through someone's personal bank account. Can you imagine if all the church donation went through your preacher's personal bank account? Like that needs extra layers of accountability, of oversight, right? So in the 501c3 sense, because you filed with the government, now you have an EIN and you file for an EIN and now you're able to get a bank account that is separate from your own personal stuff so you don't commingle money with donations and your own personal money. That's wildly important. But you can't do that as an individual unless you have a legal entity in which to open the accounts. So these are some of the advantages of the 501c3. It can kind of keep your money separate. It keeps things in separate pools. It gives it extra layers of accountability. You have a board to kind of oversee things. It keeps you from being overtly political. There are some positives to this. The tax write-offs that you get from maybe in certain states, not paying sales tax, not paying property tax on a facility, if you own a facility, not true in home church. There's some pros to that. I can understand how people get there. And so I do want to point you to some scripture in all of this. And it's Romans chapter 14. And I would ask that you would read the entire chapter. And what you're going to find in Romans 14 is that Paul says not every matter really matters as much as you think it does. It's kind of my loose translation there, my loose paraphrase. And he says, some people can say eating meat sacrificed to an idol is bad. Some people say it doesn't matter. And he says, both of you are fine. Go about your business. I think this is one of those matters where you could say, if a local leadership prayerfully looks at this and says, this is something that would be good for us, who are we to judge that? Because somebody over here somewhere abused that? Well, if the person in question is being abusive with it, then that should be called out. But just because they're doing it doesn't make it abusive. So I hope you find that helpful, that you can be equally convinced that you shouldn't do it. Well, then don't. And this guy says, I think we should do that. Well, then do it. But make sure you're doing it with honesty, integrity, with accountability, with oversight, and in a good conscience, and we can stop judging each other on that matter. And so now I've created a video that when people say this crazy stuff in the comments, I can put this link and I can just walk away. And you can too. So hope it's blessed you. I'm putting up another video on a weekly collection that will challenge some of the most widely held views and practices in American Christianity that I hope you'll consider. So you have a great day. Talk to you soon.